Hopefully, I don't stutter as bad in this episode because I drank some water. Hello, everyone. My name is Stonsey Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonsey. Today, we're reading pages 240 to 260. Please give me a moment. Yep, 240 to 260. We're coming up to the final parts of this book, and it saddens me so, but it doesn't at the same time. We have some more really fun books coming up. So that's kind of what making me not so sad about it. But yeah. This should be definitely interesting of a book to read or to finish off. And of course, the bookmarks have been updating regularly, and you've been seeing it if you're a part of the community or subscribed. So, without further ado, let's begin. Part 3, or 3. Inara rubs her thumbs against the sad little dragon, one of her scabs sketching through the brow ridge, tearing away. Victor trades a look at the partner. Grab the coat, he says, pushing back on the table. What? We're going to take a little ride. We're doing what? Addison mutters. The girl doesn't ask any questions, simply takes his jacket, shrugs into it. The little blue dragon stays in one hand. He leads them down into a garage, opening the front passenger door for the girl. He looks at the car for a moment, her mouth crooked, an expression that he can't really call a smile. Something wrong? Except for coming here in the hospital and presumably from New York or Garden. I haven't been in a car since the taxi to my grand's. Well, then you'll understand if I don't offer to let you drive. Her lips twitch. An easy laughter and comfortable atmosphere they'd finally achieved the room is gone. A vanish in the face of what they've been working toward all along. Is there a reason I have to sit in the back? Edison complains. Would you like me to invent one? Fine, but I get to pick music. No. The girl arches an eyebrow and Victor grimaces. He likes country. Don't let him pick. Please don't let him pick, she says pleasantly, and she slides in the seat. Chuckling, he waits for her legs to clear before he closes the door. Where are you going on our little field trip? Edison asks as the men cross to the other side of the car. First stop is coffee, and then we're going to the hospital, so she can check on the girls? That too. Rolling his eyes, Edison lets go and settles into the back seat. When they arrive at the hospital, coffee in hand, tea for Nara, the entire building is surrounded with news vans and gawkers. Part of them that was known to do the job too long wonders if every parent who's ever lost a girl between 16 and 18 is out there with a candle and blown up picture, hoping for the best, or maybe even hoping for the worst so long as the nightmare is not knowing is finally over. Some stare at the cell phones waiting for a call that, or many will never come. Are the rooms blocked off for the girls? She asked, angling her face away from the passenger window and letting her hair fall forward to hide her further. Yes, with the guards at the door. She squints ahead of the emergency entrance to see if they can get away with bringing her through there. Before ambulances still the bay and the flurry of activity around them. I can walk past a few reporters if I need to. They can't honestly expect me to talk about it. Did you ever watch the news in the city? We caught it every now and then with Takis at Takis and when we were getting food, she answers with a shrug. We didn't have a TV, and most of the people who hung out with had their sets hooked into game platforms or DVD players. Why? Because they do expect you to talk about it, even when they know you're not allowed to. But they will shove their microphones in your face and ask you personal questions with no sensitivity, and they'll share your answers with anyone who cares to listen. So, they're like the FBI. First Hitler, now reporters, Edison says. I'm thrilled you have such a high opinion of us. I clearly don't know enough about reporters to find them offensive, so I don't know it's too terrible. If you don't mind wadding through them, we can head in, Victor says. Before either of them had anything else, he parks her car and walks around the open of her door. They're going to be yelling, he cautions her. They'll be loud and in your face, and there will be cameras flashing everywhere. There will be parents asking questions about the girls, wanting to know if you've seen them. And there will be people insulting you. Insulting me? There's always some people who feel that the victim must have deserved it, he explains. They're idiots, but they're often vocal. Of course, you don't deserve it. No one deserves to get kidnapped or raped or murdered. But they all say it anyway because they believe it is because they want a few seconds of attention. And because we protect free speech, we can't do anything about it. I guess I so used to the horrors of the garden, I forgot how awful outside could be. He'd give anything to tell her that it wasn't true. But it is, so he says silent. They walk out to the garage in the main entrance, the agent flanking the girl protectively, and the lights and sounds rise in fever pitch. The girl ignores them with a grave dignity, staring straight ahead, refusing to even listen to the questions, much less answer them. There are barricades to keep everyone back from the path of the hospital, with the local police manning them. There are almost doors. A non-enterprising woman crawls under the barricade between the officer's legs, her microphone cord trailing behind her. What is your name? Are you one of the victims? She demands, waving her mic in front of her. The girl doesn't answer. She doesn't even look at her. Victor signals for the officer to take the woman away. With a tragedy such as this, you owe the public a full story. Her thumb still rubs thoughtfully against the little blue dragon as she turns to look at the reporter, who struggles against the officer's grip on her arms. I think you actually knew anything about the case you were planning to report, she says softly. You had better sense than to suggest I owe anyone a thing. He nods to the officer and resumes her progress to the sliding doors. Cries follow her, those closest to the door asking the missing girls, but everything fades a dull roar and the door hiss shut behind them. Edison finally grins at the girl. I was expecting you to tell her to fuck off. I thought about it, she admits, and I remember that you two are likely to be in the frame. I didn't want to head over his mother to wash her ears out hearing such filthy language. Yeah, come on, children. For the hospital, there's significant police presence, even in the main lobby. FBI, local police, representatives of other police departments, child services, all of them talking on the phones and clicking away on laptops or tablets. Those not tied onto the technology are dealing with something far more difficult, the families. As Edson drops their empty cups into the bin in the doors, Victor waves the third member of their team. Seated beside a couple in the mid-30s, Ramirez nods and doesn't take her arm around his shoulders, asks his woman next to her. Inara, this is Agent Ramirez, Inara finishes for them. We've met before I was taken away. She promised to keep the doctors from being assholes. Victor winces. Ramirez smiles. Overbearing, she corrects. I promised to try to keep them from being overbearing. Though, I think they were Maya then. Am, she shakes her head. It's complicated. These are Keely's parents, says Ramira, gesturing at the couple. She keeps asking for you, says Keely's father. She keeps asking for you, says Keely's father. He's pale and red-eyed, but offers a hand to shake. He holds up her burned, gashed hands in silent apology. I understand you helped protect her once she was there. I tried, she edges. But not that she's lucky to have been there, but it's fortunate she wasn't there long. We were going to have her moved to a private room, his wife adds through a sniffle. She clutches a Hello Kitty backpack and a handful of tissues. She's so young, and the questions the doctors are asking are so personal. She trails off into tissues, and her husband picks up a thread. She panicked. Said if she wouldn't have you, she didn't want to stay with Danielle and Bliss. Yes, I don't understand why she would. It's an awful lot to take in, Inara tells him gently. It's frightening. Keely wasn't there long, but for a couple of days. She wasn't alone. The three of us were the entire time, and often some of the other girls as well. It's comforting with the people who know exactly what they've gone through. It'll get better. She glances down at the dragon in her hand. It's not that she's not over the moon to see you. She is. She's missed you terribly, but being alone in the room right now is likely to cause her panic. Just be patient with her. Why did they do to our little girl? She'll tell you what she can. Just be patient with her, she repeats. And I'm sorry, I know I must have a million questions and concerns, but I really need to go check on the others, including Keely. Right, of course. Keely's father clears his throat several times. Thank you for helping her. His wife stands and embraces the startled girl, who throws a wary look in the grinning Victor. When he makes no move to help, she grimaces and gently pulls away from the woman's arms. How many other parents are there? She mutters when they walk away. About half of the survivors, with a few more on the way, Ramirez answers. Jogging to catch up with them in the elevators. They haven't notified any of the parents of the dead girls yet. They want to be absolutely sure it's them. That would be good, yes. Agent Ramirez calls a strident voice, followed by swift clicks of heels on tile. Victor groans, and they are close to passing unnoticed. But he turns, along with his partners, to face the approaching woman, and Nara just keeps looking at the screen above the elevator, watching the numbers descend. Senator Kingsley is an elegant woman in her 50s. Her black hair arranged in her face to give an impression of softness that her severe expression counteracts. She still looks fresh despite having been at the hospital since last night. Her crisp red suit striking against her dark skin, the small American flag pin on her lapel nearly drowned the color. Is this her then? She demands, stopping in front of them. Is this the girl you've been hiding? We've been interviewing her, Senator, not hiding her, Victor says mildly. He reaches out to grip Inara's shoulders, gently but firmly turning her around. Inara's eyes flick over the woman. She musters a smile so obviously fake it makes him wince. You must be Ravina's mother. Her name, the senator says tightly, is Patrice. It is, Inara agrees, and that will be. Right now, it's still Ravina. Outside isn't real yet. And what the hell does that mean? The smile disappears. Inara's thumb rubs against the sad dragon. After a moment, she straightens to look in the woman's eyes. It means you're too real for her to handle yet. The past 2 days have been too much. She's spent so long living as someone else's terrible fantasy that we don't know how to be real anymore. It'll come in time, but your real is very... She glances at the knot of aides and staff members hovering a respectful distance away. Very public, she says finally. If you could get rid of the entourage, maybe it'll be easy for her. We're just trying to get to the bottom of this. Isn't that the FBI's job? The senator stares at her. She's my daughter. I'm not going to sit by and watch like every other parent. Victor winces again. You stand for the law, Senator. Sometimes that means standing back and let it work. The senator spins Edison pins and hits the call button for the elevator again. Victor can see his shoulders shaking, but Inara isn't done yet. Sometimes it means being mother or senator, not both. I think she'd like to see her mother, but with what she's been through, the adjustments she'll have to make. I don't think she can handle a senator. Now, if you'll please excuse us, we need to check in on Ravina and the others. The elevator dings and steps through the room as the door opens. Ramirez and Edison joins her. Victor waves him up. The senator may be speechless for a moment, but that never seems to last long, and it doesn't. I've been informed that the woman, Lorraine, was complicit in what she's done to my daughter. I promise you, Agent, if I hear of your slightest hint of that girl as part of this, I will bring the full weight. Senator, let us do our jobs. If you want to know what happened to your daughter, if you want to get the truth, you have to let us do our job. She reaches to touch her elbow. I have a daughter only a little younger than Patrice. I promise you, this is something I take lightly. You're an incredibly strong young woman who have been through hell, and I'll honor them by giving them my best. But you have to take a step away. Could you? She asked shrewdly. I hope I never find out. God help you, Agent, if this blows up in your face. Victor watches her walk away and then hits the up button. As he waits for the elevator, he can see the rejoinder knot of people, giving orders and asking questions. Their younger staff members scrambling to respond. The older ones are steadier, less overwhelmed. He rides up the fourth floor and steps out in the noticeable hush. So different from the cramped and frantic lobby. The others have waited for him, the cluster of doctors and nurses, and talk about the nurses' station. But the presence of the armed guards at the doors keep the volume down. One of the nurses waves at Ramirez. Need to talk to the girls again? We have someone who else needs to see them. He points to the girl, and the nurse follows her gesture, easy smile. Ah, yes, I remember you. How are your hands doing? She holds them up for the nurse's inspection. The stitches are clean, and there's no swelling, she murmurs. That's a good thing. Are you picking the scabs for small wounds? A little. Well, don't do it anymore. We want these to heal. Let's get some bandages on these, just in case. Within minutes, her hands are once again wrapped in gauze and carefully taped around fingers that allow her mobility. As long as the nurse is stationary anyway, she does a quick check of the smaller injuries on her side and arm. You look good, sweetie, the woman concludes, one hand on her shoulder. Agent, you can take her now. The girl salutes, making the nurse wave her off with a smile. As they come to the first of the doors, Inara takes a slow breath, pulling the little blue dragon out of the comfort. I can guess the dynamic is going to be, she confesses. Victor pats her shoulder. Go and find out. The local officer standing guard awkwardly shifts his weight. They're all 2 doors down. All? Edison asked sharply. They insisted. They being traumatized young women. Yes, sir. He pulls off the hat, scratches his flyaway blonde hair. One of them taught me a few phrases I've never even heard on a drug bus. Probably bliss, murmurs the girl. Rather than argue with the man, he simply walks down the other 2 doors. I follow obediently the trio of agents and nods the officer of the post. May I go in? He glances at the agents who all nod. Yes, ma'am. Though individual words and voices are indistinct, they hear the sound of conversation through the wall. It stops as soon as the door swings open. The peaks of the inhabitants of the room see the girl. Maya! A black and white bass blur flies in the room into the girl's arms. Where the fuck have you been? Hello, Bliss. Patting the small girl's messy black curls, she looks around the room. Somehow the 2-bedroom has 4 beds in it. All of the walking are wounded and clustered on the beds more seriously injured, holding hands and sitting with arms around the shoulders and waist. A few of the braver parents sit on the hard chairs beside the beds, but most of them are clustered against the far wall amongst themselves, while keeping an eye on their daughters. Victor leans against the wall with a smile, watching the smallest shadow creep behind the 2 of the beds and work their way between the 2 young women. It's a joy to see the girl's gentle smile, how tightly she holds the child's answer. Hello, Keeley, I met your parents. I think I hurt them, whispers Keeley, but Anara shakes her head. They're just scared. Be patient with them. Be patient with yourself. Victor and his partners hover near the door as in nearly an hour, watching the young woman laugh and toss jokes and insults back and forth. As they comfort her, the occasional breakdown or tears, despite their obvious distaste for it, the girl allows themselves to introduce their parents. She listens for them patiently and tell her about the searches for their daughters, and how they never gave up hope, and the only sign of their cynicism is a cocked eyebrow and sends Danielle into giggles strong enough to set her off her heart monitor. Ravina, she can identify. She looks like a younger version of her mother, and when she watches the short conversation intently, wishing she could hear any of it. The senator's daughter was bandages wrapped around most of one leg. Ravina is a dancer, she remembers. As Zanara gently touches the bandages, he wonders how this will affect that. You can name some of the other butterflies from her stories. For others, she had to listen to the names and toss around. They tried to pin them to their owners, with the exception of Keeley, never renamed. None of them were original names, which is the names of the garden on their tongues, on the minds, and she could see the parents cringe every time. Inara said that sometimes it was easier to forget for the first time. He wonders if any of them did, or perhaps she's right, and they're not ready for this to be real yet. It's tempting to stay there longer, to bask in the sight of the pushbacks and horrors of the past few days, but Victor can't relax into it completely. There's more he has to see, and more she has to yet to tell him, more they need to know. He lifts the wrist to check the watch, and immediately Inara's eyes are on them. A question that doesn't need words. She nods. She sighs, closing her eyes for a moment to collect herself, then starts the process, reassuring everyone she'll be back. She's almost back at the door, and Bliss catches hand. How much have you told them? She asks bluntly. Most of what's important. And what have they told you? Avery's dead. The gardener is likely to survive to stand trial. So we all have to talk? It's time. And look at it this way. Maybe the FBI will be easier to tell than your parents. Bliss grimaces. Her parents are on their way, Ramirez whispers to the victor, flying over the Atlantic on their father's new teaching position in Paris. It's hard to tell whether they gave up looking for her or they simply had to do what was best for the children they still had. From her expression, it's clear Bliss wasn't inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. It was a last hug for Keeley, and Nara leaves the room with Victor Edison. Ramirez remains behind to talk to the parents. They pass a string of empty rooms and guards on the doors. All the rooms that the girls are supposed to be in, but aren't. Then run to the unoccupied rooms that have been buffered between the girls and the rooms that far into the hall, with their own guards. Then when they stop, Edison glances at the door, a very small window, and points to the partner a curious look. Victor simply nods. I'll wait out here, the younger man says. Victor opens the door, ushers the girls through, and closes it carefully behind them. The man on the bed is hooked to an unbelievable array of machines, all beeping softly with their own sounds and rhythms. A nasal cannula feeds oxygen to the system, but inhibition kit stands nearby, a real possibility of being needed. Dressing obscure, much of the blanket doesn't cover. Some of the bandages, some of them glistening salves and synthetic materials to draw the heat out of the buns and prevent infection. The burns extend in one side of the scalp, bubbling mess of discolored, blistered skin. The girl stares in wide eyes, her feet rooted barely a yard up inside of them. His name is Jeffrey McIntosh, Victor yells gently. He isn't the gardener anymore. He has a name and mostly disfiguring injuries, and he isn't the god of the garden anymore. He will never be again. His name is Jeffrey McIntosh, and he'll be brought to trial for everything he's done. This man cannot hurt you anymore. What about Eleanor, his wife, she whispers. She's in the next room. They can monitor her heart. She collapsed at the house. As far as we can tell, she never knew about any of this. And Lorraine? A few doors down. She's being questioned to determine the extent of which she can charge for part in all this. There will be a number of psychological evaluations before that's decided. He can see the name take shape on her lips, but she doesn't ask. She sinks down to one of the hard chairs against the wall, leaning forward. Against her knees, the steady unconscious man in the hospital bed. None of us had ever seen him so angry, she said in a tiny voice. Not even of all the harm he's ever caused. He was furious. He offers his hand and tries to hide the surprise when she actually takes it, the gauze rubbing against his skin. None of us had ever seen him like that. The three of them stood at the far end of the garden, closest to the door, and the gardener had clearly flipped his shit. He was screaming at Desmond, and there was Avery, looking smug as hell. I guess he figured his father wasn't too upset about Keeley anymore. Rather than move closer, I inspected the sea of the garden. There were people there. That much was clear. Boot prints were visible in the sand. Some of the plants were trampled. Someone must have left a gum wrapper on the stream bank. Had the officers just been incurious? Had the gardener given them an explanation that made sense? The dimensions, whispered Bliss. If we brought down all the walls, they may not have realized we were hallways. There were tracks on both sides of the main doorway. So maybe they had looked and couldn't find us. But Desmond actually made the call. My heart hurt because I wanted to be proud of him, but really all I could think about fucking time. Knowing that we were kidnapped, violated, murdered, displayed wasn't enough, but at least raped and brutalized 12-year-old finally was. This is wrong, he cried when the father finally took his breath. Taking him is wrong, keeping them is wrong, and killing them is wrong. This is not your decision to make. Yes, it is, because it's against the law. His father slapped him so hard, stumbled back and fell. This is my home and my garden. Here, I am the law, and you went against that. Laughing like a little boy at Christmas, Avery disappeared and came back only moments later with a bamboo cane. Probably the same one that had been used on him the day before. Seriously, a cane? Who the canes their own children? Seriously, actually, who canes their children at any age? But Avery handed them a cane to a father attacked to his young brother, tearing his clothes until his back was part of his ass was bare. This is for your own good, Desmond, the gardener said as he rolled up the sleeves. Desmond struggled, but Avery tucked them into a headlock. With Keeley's face pressed into his stomach, he couldn't see. He stood, watched as the gardener beat his son with the cane. It left bright red marks that quickly swelled and welts, and Avery, the sick, cheered at every impact. Desmond continued to struggle, but didn't cry out. Despite how much it had hurt, the gardener counted them out, and after 20 blows, he tossed the bamboo away from him. Avery cheers stopped. That's it, he demanded. You gave me that many for branding the bitch. He pressed the hand against the hip and felt a thick scar tissue left from the band. Were 20 blows of cane equivalent? Avery, stay out of this. No, he could have put us both in prison, on death row even, and you let him get off with 20? He dropped his brother in sandy path and left his feet. He nearly destroyed everything you've been working for 30 years. You've been turned his back on what it means to be your son. He turned his back on you. Avery, I told you. Avery pulled something in the back of his belt. It suddenly didn't matter what father told him. Avery had the room. A gun will do that. You gave him everything, he yelled, pointing a gun at his brother. Your precious Desmond, who never did a thing to help you stock the garden. They're so damn proud of him. The butterflies like him. He doesn't hurt them. He doesn't understands them better. Who gives a shit? I'm your son, your firstborn. I'm the one you're supposed to be proud of. His father held out his hands, staring at the gun. Avery, I was always proud of you. No! You were scared of me. Even I know the difference in that, father. Avery, please put the gun down. There's no place for that here. There's no place for what? For that here? He echoed with a sneer. That's what you've always said about anything I wanted. With a deep pained groan, Desmond rolled on his back and propped himself up with his elbows. The gun went off. Desmond fell back in the path of cry, blood blooming across his breast of his tattered shirt. The gardener lurched forward with a sob, and the gun went off again. The gardener fell to his knees, clutched at his side. I thrust Keeley at Danielle and shoved them both behind the boulder. Stay here, I hissed. Bliss grabbed my hand. Is he worth it? Probably not, I admitted, but he did call. With a sad shake of her head, he let go. I raced forward the clutch of the girls. I had almost to Desmond, and Avery grabbed me by the hair and yanked me off my feet. And here's the bitch herself, the little queen of garden. She pistol whipped me so hard my ears rang, and part of the gun sliced my cheek with the impact. Dropping the gun, he kicked me into my knees and fumbled at his belt. Well, I'm the king of the garden now, so you better learn to show me some respect. You put that near my mouth and I'll bite it off, I snarled, and by his shoulder Bliss cheered. She hit me again and again, and raised his hand to do once more. Then Nazir's voice stopped him. I can hear sirens. I couldn't hear anything but bells going off inside my skull, but some of the other girls, I'll only hear them too. I wasn't sure if they were trying to distract him or the sirens were real. Avery dropped me off and ran through the garden to take a path up the cliff to see for himself. I crawled to Desmond, who was trying to keep pressure on his chest in one hand. I moved my hands and did it myself. His blood warm and sticky as it pumped against my palm. Please don't die, I whispered. He weakly squeezed my hand, otherwise didn't try to answer. The gardener groaned and pulled himself to the other side. Desmond, answer me. The pale green eyes, his father eyes, fluttered open. The only way to protect them from him is to let him go, he panted. Sweat beat his face. He'll kill them all, and there'll be a pain in every moment. Just stay awake, Desmond, his father pleaded. We'll get you to the hospital. Figure this out. Maya, keep pressure on it. I hadn't stopped. As now I could hear sirens. Avery jumped and swore atop the cliff, and the girls raced forward and surrounded us, probably figuring the gardener and Desmond were safer from Avery off the deep end. Even Lorraine was clustered with us. No one had tried to brush her away. Bliss picked up the gun with shaking hands and kept her eyes trained on Avery, and the sirens got louder. I can't figure out a way they came back, she whispers, clutching his hand for dear life. They didn't find anything the first time, right? Or the gardener would have lifted the walls. One of the officers who stayed at the station ran the names Desmond gave her on the phone. Keeley's name was recognized because she was recently missing, but then ran some others. FBI flags came up in the search. His supervisor contacted us when he met him out there. Cassidy Lawrence, for example. She went missing almost 7 years ago in Connecticut. There's one reason to say her name was Keeley unless there's actually a connection between them. So Lionette was part of why we were finally found, she asked with a faint smile. Yes, she was. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the man on the bed breathe in and out. And Nara, rest of it. Nara, hopefully this is the last difficult thing I have to ask of you. Until you ask me to take the stand, she sighs. I'm sorry, I truly am, but what happened next? Fucking fat. The gardener pulled the remote control thing out of his pocket and punched a series of numbers and a tiny pad in it. Servat, please go into the room and right under the door and get some towels, rubber tubing. The one, Zara? She asked. Yes, that's the one. The slow smile spread across her face. She sped away with a laugh. Servat had been there a year and a half, and as long as I'd known her, she'd been solitary and just odd. The gardener adjusted his belt and put pressure on the wound in his side, stroked his son's hair, telling him to stay awake, asking him questions and begging him to respond. Des squeezed his hand in response. Some things are still breathing, but didn't try to talk. When I thought would probably be for the better. When I got the towels and tied to him, will you let us take him out of the front? I asked. The gardener just looked at me, nearly through me, seemingly weighing the butterflies against the sun. Even now, finally he nodded, and I smelled it and froze. Danielle was set next to smell it, her nose wrinkling. What is that? Formaldehyde, I hissed. We need to get away from that room. What room? The gardener paled even more. No questions now, ladies. Come. We had to drag Desmond across the sand, the gardener stumbling and swaying after us. He splashed through the waterfall. Anyone who tried to go behind it stayed dry or got pushed in by Bliss and crowded into the cave. Over the sound of the waterfall, we heard Servat laughing, and then she shakes her head. I don't know how to describe the explosion, she tells him. It was massive, all around in heat. A few of the rocks came down on top of the cliff, and the cave didn't collapse, like I was half afraid it would. There were flames and glass everywhere, and these stupid little sprinklers misting through the steam. Air poured in, and a shattered roof and the flames heaped toward them. Smoke poured, along with real butterflies, and even with that, the smoke was so thick it barely breathed. We had to get out of there. You went through the stream until we reached the pond. Our feet caught up pretty badly from the glass, but the flames were spreading and the water seemed to be a better option. The front half of the garden was still a huge blaze. I asked the gardener. He swallows hard, looks at the man in bed. I asked Mr. McIntosh if there were any emergency exit or any other way to get out, but he said he never thought anything would happen. She twisted her hand in his grip until her other hand had reached underneath the bandages and touched the scabs. He gently pushes it away. Wow. Just the genuine end of the butterfly garden. That's crazy. Um, I wonder why Sahira was so adamant on dying. Is that mean to say? I don't know. I mean, she's always was one about death, but just for it to end like that is crazy. Like how she always was like the what did Anara call her? The odd goat or something? Just for her to do that, yeah, so weird. Uh, anyways, today we read pages 240 to 260. This being the last normal episode. Next time we'll be reading the final pages of this book, being 261 to 276, only being 15 pages. Which, yeah, considering we technically read 16 today, should go by pretty quickly. What should also go by quickly is that it's time for... Reading Corner of the Day, doing it up Stonsey's way. Pop. Today we are learning about the Portuguese Water Dog. Very small, very fluffy. If you can't tell which one's the puppy and which one's the adult, as I like to do for this, I wouldn't blame you. I really don't know either, even though I was the one who picked the pictures. They're very small and very dopey looking. But before I can make fun of anything, especially if it's something I'm interested in, such as dogs or government, I should learn of its history. Not only does it make me look more credible, but it also makes me more intelligent. It makes me look smart in front of my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, or heck, maybe even my angel's hat with hair in it. I don't know why I have that, but still. Now, intelligence doesn't necessarily lie in just knowing things. It goes into knowing things and teaching them, in my opinion. And no, that's why some of the smartest people you ever meet are teachers and doctors. Though there are some dumb teachers and there are some dumb doctors, and I will never deny that. So, the history of the Portuguese water dog is that the consummate water-working dog, the Portuguese water dog, probably shares some of its ancestry with the poodle. Their ancestors were herding dogs in the Central Asian steppes, either brought into Portugal by way of Visigoths in the 5th century or by way of Berbers and the Moors in the 8th century. Once in Portugal, they distinguished themselves for the affinity of water, eventually herding fish into nets, retrieving lost nets or equipment, and serving as boat-to-boat and boat-to-shore courier. Later, the dogs were part of the trawler crews fishing the waters in Portugal to Iceland. The breed is known in native land as the Cão de Água, pronounced Cão de Água, which means dog of water. It comes from the long-haired variety known as Cão de Água de Polo Onde and currently coated variety known as the Cão de Água de Pelo Encarladolado, which demise the traditional fishing methods. The Portuguese fishermen and their dogs began to disappear in the coast of the early 20th century. The breed was saved largely with the attempts of one man, Dr. Vasco Beneswade, a wealthy shipping magnate who promoted the breed through his efforts. The breed club was reorganized and standard was written, and the first dogs exhibited in the show ring. After a brief appearance in England in 1950s, the breed virtually died out there. Around the time the first PWDs came to America, they slowly gained a following after, and the officially AKC, recognized American Kennel Company, recognized in 1984. Their popularity grew more rapidly, and the breed is now proving itself as a family companion. Family companion and almost extinct history. So, it makes you genuinely wonder, is it still a good dog? Is it still great for being a family dog? Well, that would have to run into the temperament of the breed. Now you're wondering, how come you're not just talking about the temperament and instead you're avoiding the concept? Well, that's simply because, good viewer, I'm trying to do two things at once, and it's going great. Well, the temperament of the Portuguese water dog is that the gregarious Portuguese water dog is a fun-loving, family-loving, water-loving dog. It's a good with children, other dogs, and pets. It's sensitive and responds well to direction. It's a good breed for active person wanting to be an adventurous, affectionate, biteable partner. Fun little dog. So what's the upkeep? Is it good? Is it bad? How do I keep my dog up and running and a family lover? Well, the upkeep is that it's an active breed needing daily physical and mental exercise, preferably involving swimming and retrieving. Otherwise, it needs a long walk or jog and a vigorous romp. The Portuguese water dog does best living as part of his human family, sharing activities inside or out. The The coat needs combing every other day, plus monthly clipping or scissoring. Now, if you own a Portuguese water dog and you're a child, please cover your ears or go pet the dog. If you are a Portuguese water dog and you're a teenager or adult, please listen in as we're going to talk about the health concerns of their tests, and their lifespan. Major concerns are PRA. Minor concerns are GM1, strong storage disease, disctichiasis. I'm sorry, I've always hated that word. Addison's, CHD, juvenile cardiomyopathy, hair loss, and follicular dysplasia. They're occasionally seen with irritable bowel syndrome and seizures. The suggested test for the eye-hip DNA for GM1, their lifespan is 10 to 14 years. Now imagine you don't see this dog in front of you. What's their form? What's their function? How are they going to be slightly longer than tall, as they normally are? Well, the form and function is that the Portuguese Water Dog is a robust dog of medium build, slightly longer than it is tall, bingo. It is strong and well-muscled, able to work both in and out of water for long periods. It is a profuse single coat, either wavy or curly. 2 clips are acceptable. The lion clip, in which the muzzle and middle part up into the tail tip are clipped, and the retriever clip, in which the entire coat is scissored to about 1 inch in length. Its tail tip contains left in full length. The water dog's expression is steady, penetrating, and attentive, reflecting its spirited disposition. Now, for the final part of today's episode, we have the tier list. Now, let me quickly click on this cookie heart. Oh, it wasn't what I wanted. And let me explain it to you. 5 is the best, 4 is better, 3 is average, 2 is worse, and 1 is the worst unless it comes to grooming. This dog is a lot of 4s. Energy level, exercise requirements, playfulness, affection level, friendliness towards other pets, watchdog ability are all at a 4. Their friendliness towards dogs, friendliness towards strangers, ease of training, protection ability, cold tolerance, and heat tolerance are at a 3, so average. The grooming requirements are at a 5, which is not good and is the first dog to ever reach 5. Goodness. Their weight of a healthy male Portuguese water dog should be 42 to 60 pounds. Female should be 35 to 50 pounds. The height of the average Portuguese water dog male is 20 to 23 inches and female 17 to 21 inches. And it couldn't be feet unless we were living in a world of giants. Oh, I'm sad now. The next breed of dog we're going to be talking about has a giant place in my heart and my head, if anyone knows me personally. And that breed of dog is the one we'll be talking about in the next episode, though I'm not going to feel happy talking about it. So I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. Be polite, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.